Hi, welcome to the She Moves Mountains podcast. This is your host, Kamala Murphy. Thanks for joining us today as we talk about some of the juicy stuff we women experience that makes this life journey truly amazing. You know, the nitty-gritty, the love, the loss, the falling down and rising up, the getting lost and finding our way again. To our hearts, our happiness, and to the awareness that we can and do move mountains. Thank you for joining. Well, welcome everyone. This is Kamala Murphy. Welcome to this episode of the She Moves Mountains podcast. I'm so excited today because today as a guest we have Melissa Lyons, who is an amazing life coach and best-selling author. Who has so many amazing experiences to share with you about her life and her journey and the work that she's doing in the world. So welcome, Melissa. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Great.
Lovely.
Yes. So I'd just like to share a little bit more about Melissa. Melissa is a best-selling author and life coach, and she is passionate about helping people find hope and to heal after they've experienced heartache, which this podcast is so much about, that falling down and rising up and all the hurts. Melissa uses her own experience, her own vulnerability, and the heartbreaking experiences that she has gone through to reach and connect with people who need that help and to reach them in deep and meaningful ways. Her personal journey, which includes decades of entrepreneurial and corporate business experience, inspired her to become an expert in dealing with traumatic breakdowns and then facilitating the breakthroughs of healing. By uncovering limiting beliefs and the recurring guilt patterns that we sometimes have, she leads people to reveal and rediscover their purpose, their big why. And in doing so, reminds people of their potential and the possibility of this life. Her heartwarming and profound books, of which she has 2, so far, have helped thousands of people embrace fresh perspectives during times of struggle and devastating grief and loss. So again, welcome, Melissa. Because this podcast is about She Moves Mountains and the experiences we women have, of love and loss and heartbreak, this feels like such a great opportunity to speak with you, Melissa, and have you share about your experiences and how you have moved your own mountains to develop this, coaching business and the not programs, but the processes that you use to help people, overcome that loss so that they can have these big breakthroughs. So if you wouldn't mind sharing just a little bit about some of the mountains, your journey, the mountains that you have moved.
I'd love to. And I have to say, I love the title and the concept of moving mountains. I think now I'm at the point where I probably have the ability to move mountains, but what I've had to do along my way is figure out how to work with them and navigate over them rather than move them, because for so long they seemed like they weren't going anywhere and I was there, so we had to figure out a way to work together.
Yes.
But I love your analogy of the mountains. I would have to say that for me, the biggest obstacle I've had along the whole way, and I'm probably not unlike other people as myself, was finding out that at every stage of my life, no matter how good I looked or how good my job was or how great I was achieving things or how great my family life was, there was still something so empty and so void of feeling healthy inside of me. And that to me was the biggest mountain that I had to learn to move or to work with, was that feeling of never being complete no matter what I had. And so I think we talked about it earlier, another conversation about the divinity, the divine timing of life and how it unfolds. And I went to school and did all the things right. I followed all the things, like, you go to school and then you get married and then then you get a mortgage and you get a job and then you have your children and you do all these things, and they're all like MBA focused, like you set goals and you conquer them. And at no point did I ever figure out if any of those things were aligned with my heart. So the biggest thing I learned was to actually, at the end of it all, and this was like by the time I was almost 50, was to say, holy cow, I've been living this life for everything outside of me, for the effect of everything that I did. And rarely was I ever focused on the cause. So by learning to stop, slow down, and to actually align to the causes that actually healed that emptiness inside of me that's been there for, I don't know how it got there.
Yeah, forever almost.
Forever, right? And I think some people naturally are runners, and some people naturally can sing or draw. And I think some people are born with the ability to just follow their heart, and other people have to learn, and I had to learn.
Was there something that precipitated the sort of a, like, whoa, I've really got to do this? I mean, sometimes it is like turning 50 or getting close to that 50 mark, Was there something in particular that sort of like, okay, girl, time to refocus here?
Yeah, there was. And it wasn't the first time that it happened, but it was the first time that it actually stopped me in my tracks. And I decided that, no, I wasn't going to live like this any longer. I remember a time I had a business. I had about 18 employees, and something had happened at work, and things just really felt completely hopeless for me. My girls were maybe 6 and 8 at the time, and I have a healthy appetite. I never miss a meal. I'm that person, and I was brought back so strongly. I didn't, for almost 2 weeks, I don't really remember the exact time, I didn't eat. I hardly could finish a glass of water. In a day I might have like a half of a granola bar. I had lost all hope. My husband couldn't reach me. My children couldn't reach me. And I think it was, pretty short of being hospitalized. A woman said to me, and literally this is the true scene. We had a raised ranch house at the time, and my 2 girls were looking down at me. It's like 6 and 8 years old, thinking I was dying. For all I knew, I was dying too. And the woman said to me, what do you think your girls think when they look at you right now? What do you think it is that you're teaching them?
Wow.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, this stuff that stopped me in my tracks wasn't as important as what I was showing them.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I started it. It started the journey.
Yeah. And that's super powerful when we have children, and what are we now modeling for them?
Yeah.
And for those of us who are mothers, it's super important. It's at our core. So thank you for sharing that. I know that can be a tender place to go. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm grateful for the moment. I am forever, but boy, I don't want to feel it again.
Right.
I don't want to relive it. It was awful.
Yeah.
But yeah. And for people who are mothers, that was my moment. But it doesn't matter who we are. There's someone who looks at you, who loves you, who looks to you for inspiration, whether it be a family member or a loved one, somebody.
Yes.
Being inspired by someone else and watching how you're handling it.
Yeah.
And the responsibility to go deep inside in order to be able to come back outside.
I sometimes think of that as being sort of the dark night of the soul, but other people, it's like the heroine's journey. We have to go down. The hero goes in this arc. The heroine has to go through the underworld, basically, the deep parts. So, and that certainly teaches us a lot. Now, you had mentioned to me that when you work with your clients, you help them come back from what you called the big 3Ds or the big 3Ds. Yeah, you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, because
we laugh, but it's kind of like, oh.
Well, yeah, I think there's like 4 Ds that define us when we're going through heartbreak, and it's death, loss of a loved one, divorce, loss of a life partner, disease, loss of health, And then the last one that I've just added was dismissal, loss of a career or something that you've given your life to that just shut the door on you.
Mm-hmm.
And those things can stop us in our tracks, and we don't see that there's a gift inside, because there always is.
Right.
And I'm not, people say that and they're like, oh, blah, blah. No, there's always a silver lining.
Yes.
Always.
Yeah. With your D's, I sometimes call the dismissal, the devastation, or the dashed dreams. Those things are, knock us off course. And how do we find the gem in that? So yeah, that's great. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that. I'd love to hear, how a process that you work with your clients through, or how. I know there's a mindfulness piece, but what else would you like to share about the 3Ds or the work that you do?
Well, what I'd like to say is that in going down all of the different paths and writing the books, and part of my biggest challenge was I didn't know what my message was. And I didn't know how to pull in, like, what is my purpose? I understand my purpose is to teach and to inspire, but what? And it took me literally 3 years to get to the point where I believe that I'm here to teach inspired thought, or to help people uncover their own ways of, I have a methodology where they can help them have inspired thought, but every single thought we think is leading us to our next destination. So if we're feeling sad, we're going towards feeling more sad until we decide to change that thought. So the idea of empowered thought, so that's the first thing. And in order to understand, or inspired thought, sorry, and in order to understand how this inspired thought is, we've got to start to consciously think. And we can consciously think by consciously creating and setting intentions. So the first thing is this, to figure out how to set intentions. But we can't set our intentions until we know what our passion is. And I find when we get to that middle-aged, when we're talking about most of us are women in that time frame, we spend a lot of our lives building a lot of other people's dreams or supporting other people's dreams. Sometimes we've done our own, but many times we've supported our own plus others.
Yes.
And sometimes we lose track of that thing, those je ne sais quoi that really make us feel alive. So the first thing is to stop and figure out, if you're going to set your intentions, are they truly aligned with your soul? Not the one you know now, but the one that's yours.
Right. So, and not the one that's between your two ears. It's that.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So be mindful, get heart-centered, however you want to call it. Figure out what your passions are. And then I have a thing that I have, like a path. And the path is lined with all of the intentions, our qualities, the experience that we want to experience, the feelings you want to feel. And then everything that's not along this path that is filled with all of those things that are aligned to our heart, our soul, is anything that's a distraction, a derailer. So feeling anger, feeling frustrated, feeling lack of self-worth, not loving yourself, not any of these things, someone cutting you off, someone cutting in line, someone starting an argument with you that you decide to step into. All those things pull us off our path, and it's having that conscious awareness of, I didn't set this intention to be feeling this way today, so I'm going to feel it, take the message, take the learning, however long that might take. And if it's too long, then set it up for future investigation, but come back to my path, because it's there where I will continue to think inspired thoughts, which will keep me aligned and heading towards where I want to go.
Right.
So it's a process like that.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, because when you had mentioned, if you're feeling sad and you keep going down the sad route, you're going to keep, it's going to be sad and sadder and sadder. So this inspired thought and turning the tables on it, that's so it's so important. So I'd love hearing you share about that.
Yeah, it is. And we get you just said it, it's a spiral, and we get caught in it, and especially when we're dealing with heartache. So yes. Grief or loss. So that's when, like, you're so deeply into your own pain that you start to shut down all the avenues of feeling better. It's self-preservation. It's whatever it is that you're going through. But someone asked me once, like, what's the most controversial thing that you could say? And the thing that I could say is, when people say, take as long as you want to grieve, it's okay, take your time. I agree with that, but I think that we're doing those people a disservice by not saying, but the longer you take, the more you're going to miss.
Ah.
So you can take as long as you want, but it doesn't come without a price tag.
Right.
And the price tag is you're missing your now, you're missing your moment. So what the best thing to do would be do both.
Yes.
Be grieving for 3 hours a day and then be feeling good for 3 hours a day, or however however that mix is. But I don't really agree with this notion that take as long as you want.
Right.
You're missing everything. And people who want you to love you, who you actually want and love too.
Yes. And that's brilliant, because it's so true. You do have to have a balance, because you can just keep going down that spiral. But I love that. How much are you missing? And it's not judgment. It's not saying, oh, you've got to get over it.
No.
It's there's a balance, and there is, in my terminology, joy, in this too, and
you can carry both and honor both.
Yes.
You can, but we don't hear that message. And
right.
I don't know. I spend a lot of time now too, like on the grief chat rooms where people are talking and supporting each other. And I think they're really important. But what I really notice is the biggest message they're sending each other is don't let anyone rush you. Don't let anyone rush you. And I understand that they're well-meaning by saying it, but they also should say the other side of it.
Yeah.
But remember, the longer you take, the more everything else is happening without you.
Right. I'm getting chills at that, Melissa. Thank you. Thank you. That's really brilliant and beautiful and helpful. I mean, really.
I hope so.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is making me wonder, what prompted you? You've got the 2 books. I Will Always Love You is supporting the human people who've experienced loss.
Yes.
And Until We Meet Again, supporting healing after the loss of a pet. And I'm wondering, what was there something that prompted these 2 books? How did they come about? And I'm fascinated because I've got a little kitty who's 18 and, she's not going to last forever. And already I'm starting to feel some of the, even the grief of she's not the cat that she was,
Right.
So there's, anyway, but
yeah.
I don't want to go down that road. I'd love to hear what prompted you writing the books. And anything else that you want to share about that, because these are great and so needed.
Thank you. They are, and I have to tell you the truth though is that I didn't really write, especially the first book. I didn't write that book. That book truly was a download, and I had no idea that I had the ability or was doing something like that. I was literally, the day that it happened, and there's a whole 2-hour story that would take you to the point of that moment, but I was sitting journaling on a beach in Thailand, but it's not the typical thing you can imagine. It was at the end of a couple of weeks where we were almost isolated on an island that was flooding, and there was a lot of traumatic things happening around us. But I was peacefully journaling, having a cup of tea and a chocolate banana crepe, looking out at the ocean. So as much as it was in the middle of turmoil, I was in a really peaceful state. And I was journaling therapeutically, not to write a book. And this is how I journal, pen, paper, water, boat, tree, sand, garbage, person, tea. And I was writing words until I forgot I was writing words a lot of times because I was just trying to connect. And all of a sudden, this whole story came out on one page. And when I write, I make all kinds of spelling mistakes, or I forget to cross it, or,
Right.
There were no mistakes. It rhymed. It was on a page. And it seemed to be, for most people, the book is about the loss of someone. And it's written from the perspective of someone who's no longer with us physically.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's what the book is. And so it seems at first read to be about grief and loss, but it's about hope and love, but it deals with grief and loss. And it's written in a rhyming format. So you'd think it was for children. But anyway, so that's the book. And my husband came, he was doing a scuba diving course, and he came out and he said to me, "What happened to you? You look like something happened." And I said, "I think I just wrote a book." And he rolled his eyes and said, "Oh, goodness."
Yes, one of those.
He wasn't impressed. Yeah. But the interesting thing was when I went to read it to him, I actually couldn't speak the words. I was crying, sobbing. I started like this. And for months, I couldn't read that book out loud to anybody without being like literally like sweating and having this intense physical reaction.
Wow.
It was the most incredible experience.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I love hearing that. And it's like being open to what's coming through, which is so beautiful. So beautiful. And there's something that's sort of pinging at me right now, Melissa, about, you said that you had been writing therapeutically, and, it feels a little bit like finding your way. And that's one of the things that I talk about in the opening of each episode. It's like, it's getting lost and finding our way again. And here this, as you're writing therapeutically, all of a sudden a way is shown for you. And you went with the flow.
Well, and so yes, I did, and I didn't know why. And at first, I wondered, is this getting me ready to lose one of my children? Is this what is this for? Because I hadn't experienced any loss significant that would take me out of neither had my husband nor my children, who were, at the time they were, one was in her 20s and one was almost. So, they were old enough that we should have experienced some kind of, like, by the law of averages, and we hadn't. So I was concerned, but the thing that just came to you, I'll fast forward now, 18 months after I wrote the book, and did decide that it needed to come to market. Didn't know why, and had to figure out all of that on my own because I wasn't a writer and I didn't have a publisher. I was snowed in Philadelphia, and it was not a nice experience. Again, I was in a really awful hotel. By North American standards, I felt really hungry because I missed dinner because there was no way to get dinner because there was no roads open.
Right.
Like, I felt really sorry for myself. And the next morning, after a really long meditation, which had that same feeling, I got a message that the book is actually, it wasn't for me. It was a message from part of me, earlier or later, to me, saying it was okay to leave who I was until that point and step into who I was always meant to be. And it was, so the person who's no longer with me was the person I had been my whole life and was leaving.
Oh, are you getting chills? You've got to be getting chills.
I'm sort of crying right now, but yeah, so that was 18 months after I wrote the book that they finally told me, or it finally told me why it was for me. And it was exactly for what you picked up on your own.
I love
It's just a message to me, from me, saying, it's okay. No guilt, no guilt, no grief, no worries. It was good. You can still love yourself, but you're now who you're supposed to be.
Wow. And that too, it's really finding our way and allowing yourself to maybe grieve the woman that you were before and really step into the next version who you're meant to be. Wonderful.
And grieve the mistakes and the humiliations and the missed opportunities as you perceive them to be, because they're none of those things.
Right.
But you don't know that till you're ready to leave them.
Yeah.
So let go of the baggage, release the weight. Yeah.
So is this, this has really led you into more of the work that you do with your individual clients, I would imagine.
Yeah. We teach that which we do not quite know completely. Right?
Yeah.
We're
that we need
together.
to learn. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, because none of us know completely anyway, but you're in, again, moving mountains. I thought at the beginning too about the Sherpa. You go up in Nepal with the Sherpa because they know the way. So I think, anybody I work with, come with me. I know the way where I've been. So let's make your journey a bit easier.
Yes. Right. And I also think about when we spoke about the moving the mountains, sometimes it's a pebble at a time. It's not always with this faith, you're going to move these mountains. And sometimes it's a slog.
Yeah. More often than not.
Yes. Yeah. So you also have the book about grieving the loss of pets. How did that come about?
Okay. So interestingly, when I was being interviewed with I Will Always Love You, we would start talking and they'd say like my grandmother or my whoever, and they'd have their own story. And then boom, they would say, but I remember when I was 14 and my dog died. And so often when we're talking about the healing that's needed after the loss, people start talking about their animals and their pets that they've lost without no apparent reason other than when a human dies, we go through that ceremonial ritual, and we get to put our feelings and emotions in certain places, but we don't always do that when we lose an animal.
Right.
And we do, and we lose more animals because their lifespan's shorter. And so I think that a big part of it was that there's a need for healing for people after the loss of pet number one. And I think both books are based on the law of attraction. Again, not intentionally by me, because I didn't intentionally really write either of them in that sense. But so it's that idea of what we radiate, we magnetize. And so when we're feeling really sad, we're magnetizing more of those feelings. And so these books are to help people shift their thinking in the middle of their sadness. So you'll like this because you talked about one of my favorite lines in the pet book is reminding me, it's a woman, a young girl, and she's sitting and she's kind of meditating, and it says, allow your mind time to unwind and be free. Be as kind to yourself as you were to me. And it's again, our pets telling us.
Yes. Oh.
You're so good to me. Be good to yourself. It's a reminder.
I'm getting teary about it.
So yeah, so it's really so it's the pet. Like another of my favorite ones in this pet book is I taught you things as you watched me live, unconditional love, and to always forgive. Because our pets teach us lessons that not humans can't always teach us the same way a pet can.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the significance of the pet book. It was there because I think that the I will always love you brought forth these unhealed emotions and feelings that we need to develop new thoughts around them.
Right.
New inspired thoughts about the value of the love that we have from our pet.
Yes.
For usually less than 20 years.
Right. I'm just sensing this. The work that you do is so opening for people, and to be able to I'm hearing release, but the truth is it's more of an allowing, and I keep coming back to the balance of the grief and the sadness is really important, but don't forget that there's sunshine out today, and in my case, there are daffodils in the yard.
Lucky you.
So, find the little gems in every day. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's more important than we think. Because, like our thoughts are more important than the calories we consume, than the exercise steps that we take, than the money that we try to save when we're on a budget. They really are. But we don't consciously we don't go at the end of the day and say, oh, I had 57 bad thoughts and 34 good thoughts.
Right.
Like we do with other things. But we should, because it's our thoughts that will actually allow us to count our calories better and eat better food.
I love that.
Money more wisely, right? It precedes everything we do, but we don't pay any attention to it.
Yeah.
And from your own coaching and working with people, that once people are empowered and aligned in their thought with their hearts, everything is easier.
Right.
And more manageable.
Yes. But it is catching those thoughts as they come up, because we're on automatic pilot so often. Yeah.
We need to rewire our automatic system, or autonomous system.
Right.
I have a chart that I use, and it's like the scale of consciousness that Dr. Hawkins has, and it starts with shame, and it ends up in enlightenment, and in the middle of it is everything else, with courage in the middle. And so I put all of the emotions that you think below courage, which are like negative emotions that hold you not feeling so great, and all of the positive emotions above it. And I say to people, if you could imagine that your thoughts had nutritional value for your soul, right?
Yeah.
So if you eat well, then, and that it has very poor nutrition, everything that operates in the red, shame, guilt, resentment, anger, fear, would you be feeding yourself that if you actually understood the nutritional value for your soul?
Right.
And when you see it, you're like, oh no, I want to eat more joy, happiness, love, passion.
That's great. Yeah, because these are empty calories. These are the nutritional,
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. So
very
then it's like,
cool.
okay, you know what? It does matter how I feed my soul.
Yes.
And so I do need to measure it in some way. And the path helps you measure it.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you don't feel good, you're like, oh, I'm feeding my body bad junk food. Junk food for my soul is whenever you're feeling bad. It's just
Yes.
saying, come back.
But that's brilliant. I love that.
Well, it just helps having a visual.
Yes. Yeah. Well, wonderful. Oh, is there anything else? Because I'm feeling like we probably need to be winding down, but is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience today? And
Well, I would love everyone who's lost someone they love or a pet they love to experience my books. And there's a couple ways they can do that.
great.
They can see it for free on YouTube. I've actually uploaded videos where I read the whole story because I didn't want people to have to buy it to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to buy it, you can buy it on Amazon. You can get to all the links from my website, but it's there for people no matter how they want to experience it. But I would love them to share it with someone who's especially families who are trying to explain to their children why their dog or cat has passed or their horse.
Right.
Or their grandma or grandpa or mother or father. So all of these things for comfort and healing, because that's my goal, is to help people think better thoughts when they're going through the worst time of their life.
Right. Oh, that's great. And I will put your website in the show notes, and we'll connect about the YouTube link, and I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
And Melissa's website is melissalyons.com. Melissa-Lyons, Lyons, Melissa-Lyons.com.
Yes.
And one question that I always like to ask people is like, if you were able to whisper in the ear of your younger self, what something would you whisper to her to give her encouragement or support through some tough times?
I think the most important thing that I've actually asked for those whispers myself from my future and past selves. And what myself has told me is anytime that you're not feeling quite right, you're feeling a bit of anxiety or worry or sadness, it's because you're either worrying about what happened yesterday or fearing about what's going to happen tomorrow. Because the only time you're really truly okay is right now. And so every time that you're not feeling quite right, to check yourself and come back to this moment, because it's okay right now.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for sharing that and everything that you've shared today. I've learned so much. So thank you very much for being with me today and with our listeners. And blessings to you. Thank you again. Thank you all our listeners for listening to this episode of She Moves Mountains. So
I'd like to thank you too for everything that you do to get the message out for women. You've inspired me in many ways already. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. You take care. Goodbye, everyone. Until next time. Take care. You've been listening to the She Moves Mountains podcast, coming to you every week. If you're a woman who wants to move mountains in your own life, please make sure to subscribe or follow this podcast. And if you've laughed or gotten teary or smiled knowingly thinking, oh yeah, that's me too, please go ahead and rate the episode with 5 stars. It'll be a feel-good thing to do. Thanks a bunch. Lots of love and blessings to you. This is Kamala signing off. Until next week. Take care.